Okay, welcome everybody. This is Chairman Mike McCoo with an unfortunately delayed start to the regular meeting of the Board of Finance of September 15th, 2022. We're calling the meeting to order at 7:27 p.m. Again, my apologies. We had problems logging into the Zoom account and then it locked us out for half an hour. So we'll get going. First order of business is seating alternates. Stephanie is out of state and has asked to seat Lisa. Is Lisa here? Lisa's not here. Okay.
In that case, do we move to seat Jim?
Yes.
Move to seat Jim Gilligan for Stephanie.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Christina, your vote?
Aye.
Okay. So we have seated for Stephanie. Jim, you're on. I see you're unmuted.
Yes, I'm on board.
All right, welcome. That motion passes unanimously. Approval of minutes, we have none tonight, so I'm going to move right to present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. So we'll start in the room. Are you present to speak?
Correct.
All right, name and street address and
Nick Tell, 49 Myrtle. First two things to start off with. Just kind of upset that the minutes only go up to June on the website, trying to get some information about stuff going on, and I didn't see anything on the website. So sorry about that. I know EDC, I think it was last night, they were talking about they have 70,000. They might send ARPA. I know propane tanks with the board have been mentioned. I don't know if you guys can work to see if any of that money, 18,000 has been mentioned. Maybe come out of that ARPA money, just something that was floating around. Figured to bring it up to you guys. I see that you guys get the representatives report and such from ARPA. So it was brought to my attention that there is a nonprofit that got approved for money called Your Community Cares. They're not based out of here, they're based out of Manchester. There's other issues, concerns that they have ties to people in town hall, which is why they get the money. And some of the arguing points, I guess, that they have had is that the money would go to the senior center or something. If that was the case, then senior center should have applied for those funds. Yeah, I was watching that. John on the EDC on 810, 1402. He was mentioning that the money was for local businesses and nonprofits. At minute 1744, he had stated that they were denying a business because they weren't registered in Wellington, but they were registered in Mansfield. So why would it, if it's true on August 1st, why would have Your Community Cares been approved if others aren't? To me, my concern is because of the family connections, but that's something.
Is it?
So,
Sorry.
yep,
Was that an ARPA money?
yeah, that was ARPA money. So, but I know that they give the reports and such to you guys. So just wanted to let you guys know that there's people getting funding that don't belong in Wellington, while we're denying other people that aren't in Wellington. So makes no sense. That's it for now.
okay, thank you. Other present to speak? Anybody in the room? All right, anyone on Zoom present to speak? You can unmute, call out your name and address. Okay, seeing none, we don't typically engage, but Nick, just to, what may help you out is obviously some of these concerns probably should be voiced at ARPA, at the next ARPA meeting as well.
Yeah,
Because it sounds like a lot of it is ARPA business. But we'll certainly be paying attention to it because we have, as you know, we have a rep on the ARPA commission.
Correct.
And we'll be, getting an ARPA report tonight. Okay, any other present to speak? All right. Let's move on to old business, budget status, financial report. We got a report a couple days ago. And for those who have read and reviewed the report already, any comments, concerns, questions? Perhaps Donna, you might want to comment if you have any highlights from that you feel like pointing out.
It looks like it's on track for 2 months of
Mhm.
revenue and 2 months of spending.
All right, that sounds good. I know I have it here somewhere.
Like, can I make a comment?
Of course.
So I know, and I believe it was one of your meetings, Janice, our revenue collector, had spoken to us being at just about 56% collection. We were looking at the July report, which didn't quite reflect that. And I think now in this new report, you'll see the numbers match closer to, what she was showing you, because she was going through the current date in August, and you were seeing a snapshot of July, so anything that happened August 1st, when the deadline was, came into play.
Right.
So,
So I'm looking at it now and, yeah, so we're, showing as of August 31st. We're showing, about 8.5 million out of the. Hang on, just make sure I'm looking at the right lines here. So we're running about $700,000 ahead of last year. But I'm not sure how to equate that as percentages compared to last year, but it looks like we're running about the same. Yeah, based on the overall budget between the 2 years, it looks like we're running the same percentage of collection close to it this year as the previous year. So we're trending the same. Any questions, board members?
Yeah, which line were you on here?
I was just looking at, tax, if you look at the property taxes.
Got it, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I see, nothing really that stands out. In this. And Donna, you have no concerns, right? Or,
No expenditure concerns.
well, feel free to consider if you have another concern about that on here, is it in the revenue side maybe, or?
Well, on the revenue side, the investment income already exceeded the budget. So we budgeted to bring in $5,000. And in 2 months, we brought in just over 9,000.
Okay,
So interest rates are going up,
Mhm.
and you see that in the interest income line.
mhm,
And the license fees and permits, I think, are gonna end the year favorable because we have received a building permit from Love's
mhm,
for $60,000, and a line item for building fees, which is one of the line items in the category license fees and permits,
mhm.
has already exceeded that for the budget.
Right, okay. Yeah, I see those lines there. Yeah, the interest income is particularly, the investment income is particularly strong, isn't it?
Is that because interest rates are rising due to the Fed trying to battle inflation?
Yes,
Okay. I just check.
So we're almost double our budget for the whole fiscal year.
It's good news for us, bad news for the nation.
Hmm. Anything else you want to illuminate, Donna? Is that-
no,
okay.
can I share, we're starting to see significant increases in particular supplies. For instance, and Troy can correct me if I'm wrong on the amount. For instance, we bought some pipe that we've been waiting for a project. A year ago it was $600, now it's closer to $3,000. So while we're seeing some increase in that investment revenue, that's wonderful. I don't know that it will offset some of our supply costs. I don't know. So a line item may be favorable, but overall it's gonna be challenging.
That's why I asked where it came from, and that's where it came from.
Okay, so, things are okay right now, but stand by because it's volatile.
Right, it just, some things may have to hold.
I like that.
Would you prefer I say unpredictable?
It's very unpredictable. We're saving, everywhere we can and everywhere we can save something. We're working hard to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on. Update from the school building committee representative. That's me. The school building committee, all of the subcommittees are currently chugging along, working and a task group as well that is creating the next public outreach delivery, which will be coming soon. The Board of Ed is working
That for me, public outreach.
public outreach, the like messaging to the public with updates, what the committee's done so far and all that stuff. So,
Advertisement.
communication. We'll be reaching out to the public. Got it. With outreach. The Board of Ed is working on finalizing the education specification. That helps create a roadmap for what the size of the school and the design will be. The committee meets again next Wednesday, the overall school building committee. And so there'll be updates from the various subcommittees and the working groups at that point for anyone who's interested in attending that. Any questions from board members?
Can you include me in this line item, because we agreed at our subcommittee meeting that I would attend this meeting to share some information with the Board of Finance.
I think that would be great as part of the school building committee report.
Thank you.
I now introduce Peter Latinchich, member of the school building committee.
Trask Road.
I appreciate that. Nice. I'm proud.
He doesn't need an address right now because he's representing school building committee.
Thank you, Mike. I want to come tonight, because our finance subcommittee did meet on the 7th to review our expenditures to date. There was some confusion at the town meeting in July when our school building committee requested additional funds that are in CIP for our committee. That's regrettable. I was not there. Don and I were on vacation. Catherine, our chair, was not there. And I think unfortunately Phil was not supported, the superintendent of schools, in the manner he should have been. I think there were a lot of questions asked at that meeting about what we did or didn't spend money on, why we were requesting additional funds. That may have led to some confusion that, again, was regrettable. So to address that, our finance subcommittee met. We reviewed expenditures to date, and I'll give you guys a copy from our fiscal office of that. So it's absolutely clear to everyone, we are operating on the $100,000 that was awarded to us by the town at the last town meeting for that purpose over a year ago. And of those funds, we've encumbered, if you look at that middle column, $65,000 to date. We've actually paid out $12,000. Leaving a balance in our kitty, if you will, of $21,969. You can see, and this might have been helpful at that town meeting, you can see that the actual expenses we've incurred of that $12,000. The prouder fella is the person that did the enrollment studies for our committee. And then you see anything with Colliers, our consultant, Scott Pellman, the Collier Consulting Group that's guiding our committee in this process. And then at the very bottom, you see some details on recent activity that we had with land assessment, which is, I believe, that Haggerty and Associates for the evaluation of potential properties. The environmental studies we're doing on our 2 potential projects, renovation or new Eagle Environment, and then Collier again. What jumps out off of this and did in our subcommittee meeting, and Erica was there and myself, is we still have funds that are encumbered but weren't used. So you might think, well, why is that? Well, Scott Pellman, our consultant, has a calendar for our project. We're looking at a referendum potentially in January. So we anticipated the fall being a busy time and a lot of our consultants' time being used for various activities in the state of Connecticut and architectural and land use resources. So it all makes sense. I wanted that to be clear. In fact, we don't even have a secretary kind enough to make town resources available to us, so we're not even paying a secretary for our meetings. The money has all been used properly. It would be useful, and it's unclear to us, but we think the first step in securing that second $100,000 would be, it'll come back to you folks. I'm guessing from there, it'll go through the normal process to town meeting. And that's why I wanted it to be clear to you folks exactly what we spent today. Now, you might ask, why would we need a second 100,000 if we haven't fully consumed the first 100,000? And because our activities are going to increase, because we have twin objectives in our potential projects, one being a renovated school, one being a new school, we're probably going to need additional architectural resources to develop each project more, so we can have the public outreach Mike just referred to, and the town gets a taste of this. Whether we're going to meet our consultant's ambitious timeline, I don't know. But that's where we are now. These are the funds we've expended to date. And I think, again, this was a misconception at that meeting I missed in July. If the second $100,000 is awarded to us and we don't use it, it doesn't disappear into a void. It comes back to the town.
Right.
If, for example, we go to referendum on our rather ambitious schedule in January, and for some reason the project should fail, something we of course want to avoid, then all these funds would go back to the town. I'm assuming go back into the general fund.
So the referendum that when December, January, what?
Went on a date.
Yeah.
We don't have a
alright,
date yet, but
what would be the general
That would-
question on that?
That would basically be looking for the townspeople to approve a project.
Okay, got it.
so we, bottom line, we want to have adequate funding to fully develop both proposals for the town to consider. And we're anxious to do that as soon as we get as Mike again correctly said, as soon as we get the final ed specs from the Board of Ed, which we're hopeful will be soon, then we can do that. And essentially, I wanted you to know all of this so that when the request comes back to you to approve this request for funding, remember, we had come to you before previously and it didn't go well, again, because I think there's a lack of information.
Mhm.
So here's the information. Ask me any questions if you will, now or in the future.
And thank you. And this is part of what the goal of the outreach also will be, is to get better communication to the community about what's been done, what we're doing right now, and where this is pointed. So when the public is asked to make decisions, whether they agree or disagree, when they make their vote, they're the best informed.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any questions about expenditures to date or?
It looks like Christina has a question.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see the screen.
My question is, it's not about this. Lisa is trying to call in and she can't connect. So I don't know, Mike, if you can see her on your end,
She's not in the waiting room.
no. She said she's calling in, but
It should connect the same way.
It should still show in the waiting room, and the waiting room is empty.
okay. I'll tell her that.
Tell her
Alright.
she's the only one having technical difficulties tonight. Okay, any other questions from board members for Pete?
The encumbrances are essentially consultants on a retainer, essentially.
It's the
We
consultant
have
contract,
a contract with Collier Associates.
Right.
And and I'm kind of glad that he husbanded those funds, so to speak, for when we really need them.
Well, right, so he had anticipated a certain amount of hours to get to a certain phase
I
of
think so.
this.
So
Yes,
those dollars, the contract is for pre-referendum, so it should be all the work to get us to a referendum. So because we're not bumped up against a referendum, it makes sense we haven't spent all those dollars.
and there also the billing will lag a little bit, like he's done work and he's done work today that I'm aware of. So there's a bill, there are hours that are on the way to getting billed.
I
I
think
think if you look at that, looks like we saw one in March, and so they may bill, quarterly.
When we had him at our subcommittee meeting on the 7th, he said he was billed up to date.
Yeah,
I was,
but I'm guessing they may not bill monthly.
it wasn't making sense to me, but okay.
I think they're billing quarterly.
It
Okay.
looks like it without looking at the, when we were discussing it, I was looking at the physical bill. We can look, I can work with finance to take a look at the
Thank
bill.
you.
So at our next subcommittee, we can answer that question.
But I'm hopeful, maybe hang on to the sheet, because when this comes back to you in the form of a request,
Mhm.
then you can answer questions from the public, about
Sure.
how the funds are being expended and the funds we're requesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anything else from the board? Questions about the school building committee? Okay, seeing none. Let's talk about our ARPA update. Christina, would you like to jump on this?
Sure. So you all got my update.
It's very colorful.
Colorful?
Yeah, always red and green and.
Oh, yeah, that's the tracking sheet, or,
Okay.
Yep.
yeah. Which is basically how we're keeping track of how much money has been encumbered, and then as the projects get closed, how much is getting returned back to the pot, so that we know how much money there is to go. Right now, we're in a holding pattern because the second tranche of funding that we were anticipating in July only partially came. So we're waiting for that. And so I don't know, we have a meeting on Monday, and I'm guessing we're probably, if the money isn't in Wellington, we're probably not going to award any more projects or open it back up until such time as it does. We have several projects that have been approved that are just waiting to get the word that they can start spending the money. Also, Donna printed out for me the latest expenditure run, which is, I think at this point we have enough projects that are active that our committee needs to start looking at, just on a regular basis, how the funds are getting used and making sure that they're used as they were intended to be. And I know someone in the audience was asking about the UR Community Cares, and that is actually it's Human Services is sponsoring that, and they're using the funds to have UR Community Cares come and help with a project that they're doing with the seniors. So basically they help make connections between seniors and other people who want to help them. So it's like a community building program. And it's something that Human Services was already going to be doing, but they were going to be doing a really basic bare bones version of it. And now they're going to be able to do a more robust program. So that's what that is.
Christina, can I just ask a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
So I had the same concern that was brought up before, that this vendor or whatever, that this applicant was not in Wellington. And as I understand, there was a lot of discussion about that. And as I understand it from that discussion, and now from what you're saying, is the money isn't going to that vendor to help them as an ARPA recipient. The
No.
money is being used to hire that vendor to do services in Wellington.
Exactly.
So the fact that they're based out of Manchester or wherever is just where the vendor is based, but the work will happen to benefit Wellington residents.
Correct.
Okay.
And only Wellington residents.
Okay.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions about anything going
We're
on?
talking about expenses.
Mhm.
So are you going to make a regular thing of sort of reviewing expenses to make sure we're on track and we haven't accidentally reached into the wrong pot of money or whatever, things like that?
Yeah. Yes.
I bring that up because I know that, I know there was a question in the expense run about insurance. I also know that when we did our new engagement with the auditor for the town of Wellington, they were specific to point out that our audit costs were going up because of the added testing, as they refer to it, that was potentially going to come along with the ARPA programs, that this extra aid money coming from the feds was potentially going to require extra auditing. So that just sort of reminds me that we have a new area of risk that they're going to be testing for. And so we should try to make sure that we're doing the best job, that they don't find anything, you know, even accidentally done, put in the wrong place.
Right. Yeah, so yeah, I actually just finished the agenda and that's something that we're gonna be talking about on Monday.
All right.
Lisa is still texting me that she can't get in, but she's using the right phone number.
Yeah, she's not showing up she's not showing up as trying to get in. We're looking, the waiting room, the participant list is up on the big screen here, so.
The other option is you could call one of you and come through that direction.
Yeah, she could come on speaker if she wanted to.
Okay.
Let's carry on for the moment. Do you have anything else, Christina?
No, I don't think so.
Anybody have questions for Christina?
Just a general one. So for the projects that are already awarded and are already in progress, that have been allocated a certain amount of money, what's the protocol or policy from your committee? If they can't be finished for that, if there's a cost overrun?
A crossover in time?
Cost overrun.
Oh, cost overrun. Well, they can't have a cost overrun. Just like all the other projects that happen in town, if it looks like that's gonna happen, or if they need more money, they have to come back and ask for more. And I'm guessing they could ask ARPA for that, or they could ask us for that. Hasn't happened yet. Knock on wood.
So presumably it's a hard stop at the end of
Hard
it.
stop.
Almost every project we've had so far has been from the board.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I remember some of the background on this for the storage for evictions. We have to store this stuff. Is this cost here for like a shipping container, or is that
Yeah,
something
it's a
different?
for a Connex box.
Connex box,
Yeah.
thank you.
But I believe that's one of those that's on hold. So just asking evictions for what? So the town, by statute, takes possession of the belongings when a marshal, takes the property through eviction. We, have to follow a process and hold the belongings for 15 days, at which time, the owner can, make good on, due costs and retrieve their items. So we have an obligation to keep their belongings and keep them protected. And so what we found, we had one eviction recently that used an entire Connex box and probably would have filled 2 more. If we'd had another eviction, we're now talking about either the town, either using a portion of town property, whether that be a portion of the town garage, or renting a storage facility, which many municipalities have to do. It's problematic for municipalities, especially larger municipalities, and we're working with legislature to try to take that undue burden off the towns. So Troy's trying to find the least expensive way, especially because with the moratorium on evictions, there could be We
More
could have a
coming.
swell of them at any given time, and even that Connex box, the two that he has one for storage for his own things. We could run out of space and have to incur the cost, and we're obligated to. So.
Mhm.
Although, after 15 days, we're allowed to hold an auction that is publicly held, we notice it. And, warn it at the location, and any proceeds that may come from that, you can take reasonable cost. So if we spend $100 on storage fees, we could take that off, and then the owner receives the rest of the funding. So.
Probably be cheaper to rent a Conex box than rent a storage space.
Well,
We're-
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it looks like the
So we're
cost
looking
is
to purchase.
$6,500, and
Yeah,
it looks like it's paid for already out of tranche 2. That's why I asked.
It's not purchased yet, Christina. correct me
it's
if I'm wrong.
assigned.
It's assigned to tranche 2, but I think we can
Okay.
hold on it.
Yeah,
I thought green meant paid. Sorry, I jumped ahead one month.
Okay, any more questions on the ARPA report? Okay, moving on, review of previous budget seasons, lessons learned for the future, request form. I have not had time, as you guys might have noticed, but we met a week late last month. And this month, the first was a Thursday. We came to this next meeting basically in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks from the last meeting. I have not had time to, send that form out to all of you, so maybe tomorrow I'll get the form out to all of you. Annual reports, same thing. I haven't gotten to that letter yet. Next couple of days, I promise. I have to stay home to wait to sign for a package tomorrow all day, so maybe I'll get that done.
Don't have another responsible adult in the house.
It won't even be a responsible adult. No, the other responsible adult has to work. Okay, item 6, old business, DPW request for CIP funds to conduct stormwater management and mapping services and a potential motion to purchase. Just for a little refresher, we talked about this last month. We tabled it because the CIP approval was for $40,000 and the project came in at $45,000. So because we needed clarity on where it was gonna come from, we didn't want to move forward until we knew where the $1,000 was coming
Yeah, we
from.
needed a motion.
So here we are. We have information that came to us in advance. I emailed out from Donna, and Donna, do you want to highlight anything, or Erica highlight anything before we dig in?
So, the funding, there's two $20,000 amounts that were set aside from two previous CIP years, 18-19 and 19-20. And so we're asking for those to be utilized. The money would come from LoCIP, so they're not
It's not from Wilmington taxation.
taxpayer
Yeah.
dollars. This is from the local capital improvement plan through the state. And so that requires us to have an appropriation from Board of Finance, and then the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting, and the vote to actually spend the funds comes at town meeting. And so when we came last week, my concern was we didn't have an exact motion, and that your motion is what carries directly to town meeting. And we want to make sure we did this right and that we can appropriate the correct funds. So you see a suggested motion from Donna, the contract from Beta. And if you recall Beta, we have
There
the
she is.
CROG approved vendor who is going to begin in the next couple of weeks, we hope by the end of October, with a deliverable on the pavement management software, working with Troy. And they can come in and do the stormwater management mapping within our cost range, which was certainly challenging at best. And so their proposal was $45,000. We have $40,000 from LoCIP. We build the CIP plan on very specific dollars that we know are coming in from LoCIP. This is over that amount, not surprisingly. Troy and I have gone through his budget, and we feel confident we can make up the additional dollars within his budget. So we would, upon town meeting vote, we would then at Board of Selectmen, move to spend that $5,000 out of the Public Works budget in this vendor.
Donna, anything you want to add? Well covered, right?
And the consistency between the pavement management and the mapping will really help us to create some solid layers within
The GIS, yeah.
GIS, sorry. And so the consistency will really be beneficial to us as well.
All right. So for the, for the,
Joining the meeting.
I'm all over, I'm here, there. Okay, so I'll make the motion for the sake of discussion. Recommend that the Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry, let me start that over. The Board of Finance recommends that the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting to appropriate $40,000 from LoSiP to contract with Beta Group Incorporated to provide stormwater management and GIS mapping services, which are needed as part of the MS4 permitting process. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Only that we've been putting this off for like 8 years, so we might as well do it.
We're not expecting it to get cheaper?
Christina worked really,
Really
really hard
hard.
to get us out of this permit.
At the Board of Finance's urging and
Oh, yeah.
CIP, because I was on both at the time.
So we've been able to stay in compliance because we are making progress towards this to this end, and so now we can really show that we're making progress in our very urban community.
Right.
Quickly.
Right. And it is, it wasn't the CIP plan, so, you know, there should be no surprises about this one.
Any other discussion? Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Jeff,
Just on principle.
Yes.
Christina,
Yes,
Jim,
Jim
is Jim still on?
disappeared.
It's gone.
Oh, what happens now?
well, and I think Lisa's on now too.
It was on, but we'd have to appoint her, and we have a motion on the table right now, motion on the floor, I mean,
I
sorry.
didn't know he fell off. I was gonna say,
It's
hopefully
not,
it's him.
yeah, no, okay. So,
Do I have to vote yes then?
no, so we got everybody, right? Just me, right?
Yep.
So I'm a yes,
So that's 3 yeses and a no, and we've got,
so motion passes,
yes.
and, you, yes and no, or you'll take care of that.
I'll take care of it.
All right. Okay, so next, let's handle, the loss of Jim Gilligan. Lisa, can you hear us?
Yep,
Okay, Jim had been appointed, to fill Stephanie's spot, but now that you're here, Jim seems to have disappeared. Oh, no, wait, now he's back in the waiting room again. Stand by.
Cedar for Joe. Where's Joe on now? All right, Jim's. Can I move to seat Lisa for Joe?
Sherelle, yes.
Sherelle,
Second.
there we go. All in favor? Oh, sorry, that's your job.
I was just watching Jim to make sure he's coming. Jim, are you back on? Jim, can you hear us? Well, because I wanted him to vote on the motion if he's here. Okay, so let's vote on the motion to seat Lisa for Joe Sherelle.
Aye. Oh, sorry.
Jeff? Pete,
Yes.
Christina?
Yes,
That's Jim still.
Try it.
Okay, Jim, You know,
And I'll be a yes.
like, yeah, okay.
Okay, so motion passes. Lisa, you're on for Joe Chevelle. Okay. Looks like Jim's audio is back on. Jim, can you just do a sound check, make sure we can hear you?
Yeah, sorry about that, Mike. I inexplicably lost internet in the whole house for about 15 minutes. I'm back.
Welcome back.
Sorry about that.
Okay. All right, so
What do we do about the first one?
just note that Jim was on Zoom and did not respond. For both of those.
Okay.
So we're up to second appropriation.
So, all right, I'm just making sure I'm in the right place on the agenda here. So the remaining 5,000, we don't have to act on because that's within your budget discretion. Okay. Putting that one behind us. Okay, so we're done with old business. On to, no, we did this.
I thought there's two parts to that. Wasn't there a dump truck someplace?
No, it's
Oh,
here.
down.
That's new business. Okay, so first item of new business is the CIP kickoff. Christina, you want to just give us a quick review or just a quick update on where CIP is, because it is September and we usually aren't talking about CIP just yet.
Right. But last year we had talked about doing some site visits, and doing them when it's not 0 degrees out. So, and, been trying to set up a couple of different nights. I think they're gonna happen on Wednesday nights, starting at 5:30. And the 2 dates that we're working with right now, but they're not set in stone yet, are Wednesday, the 28th and of September 28th and October 12th. And we're going to visit places like the town office building, the public works garage, the fire departments, and try to get at least 3 different locations each night. And just, quickly do a little walk about and then move on. So just so that when we reconvene, everybody knows a little bit more about the trucks and the buildings and the specific issues that we're going to be talking about. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody with any questions for Christina?
I actually think that's a good idea.
So do I. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Christina, you got a gold star, well, a silver star. Bronze.
Thanks, Jeff.
He's not big on giving out gold stars.
Oh, I know.
Okay. Next item, new business number 2, CIP, Department of Public Works dump truck cost increase and potential motion to approve. There was a document sent around to board members, which has some background that the CIP request that's in the current CIP plan for this fiscal year was for $225,000. That was approved through CIP, approved through the town. We were unsure how we were going to fund it at the time. The original intent in CIP was to fund it completely essentially from cash, as opposed to financing or leasing in any fashion. But there was a concern from this board on the affordability of that idea. So we came up with sort of a split thing where we were going to pay for part of it out of cash up front and then lease a smaller portion of it in the out years. So we were going to use a portion for down payment and then a portion to get started. So we did sort of a hybrid of cash now and pay later. And in the interim now, apparently the truck has become more expensive. And so there is what is basically comes out to roughly a 30% price increase on this project, which is why it's back to us. Erica, you want to give a quick rundown since you're kind of the requester, submitter?
To Troy, certainly feel free to chime in at any point. We were dismayed to discover, increases in these trucks, but Troy, this is something discussing with multiple vendors. That has not been a surprise to us. We've known this was a possibility. These increases are happening and they could happen again at any time. And we're looking at purchasing far out as well. This isn't something we're probably going to get for this winter at all. It's not even option. So we're looking into the 2024 year because of the time of ordering. And so what we discovered was, now the price is much higher. So we need to come up with the funds from some other avenue, whether the board feels that purchasing it straight up with cash and increasing money from the general fund, and I believe that's Donna's recommendation, correct, Donna? From the capital reserve fund, is to increase that amount
Yes.
out of that fund, and then continue to the portion that we were expecting to finance. The other option, and this hasn't been discussed at Board of Selectmen yet, and it really depends on ARPA funding, is we know that the direct increase in cost of this item is a direct result of the pandemic. And so are we better suited to go through ARPA funds? It just gets a little convoluted, I think, and Donna may speak to that, where we pull the funding from, but without dipping into our reserves. That could be another option, but it's only an option if it passes ARPA, the Board of Selectmen, then ARPA, and then those funds are available, right? So we're not open to even apply to ARPA again at this point, but I certainly want to put all of our financial options out on the table for the board to discuss. But the fact of the matter is, we still are in need of this vehicle. We're already going to be a year behind because it's not going to be ready for this winter. And the price, the longer we wait, the more we're going to be paying. And just for some background, we're still waiting on a vehicle that we purchased we ordered last July.
So, the vendor is saying you can't order a 2023 now, even though it's still 2022.
The current frame for the time frame is April of 23 because it's a 24 chassis. Correct, Troy? Let me make sure I'm saying
Yeah,
that.
so, yep, so that is correct. So basically Freightliner basically ordered so many trucks. And then if we weren't part of that whole deal, then basically it's a 24 chassis. So they're not saying like there's, a million trucks out there anymore. They're basically saying Freightliner is saying this is how many trucks are being produced every year. And this is what it is. So you have to be on it. And currently we wouldn't, if the funding was right now, we couldn't purchase a 23. It would have to be a 24. But
The
the
23s are already accounted for, basically.
correct. Yep.
Okay,
Unless somebody backs out of one and then we
Right.
have a shot at whatever the board is.
Right.
This is what we're seeing across the board with vehicles.
so, Troy, back in going through this process, I think in CIP, we talked about at that time, the increase being about $50,000 over a truck we had purchased a couple of years ago. And at that time, the conversation was that the truck we had purchased was sort of an off the lot truck that had not as good and robust features as you wanted. And so that was part of the reason that this plan was going to be $50,000 more. Now it's going to be $120,000 more than that other truck. Is there any chance that you could maybe dial down the quality or the ruggedness of this truck a little bit, since we're now looking at a 30% cost overrun, to bring it closer to budget?
It is a possibility, Mike. But these trucks, to put a regular steel body on, we're running almost pure salt now instead of the stainless steel body. There's also a bigger transmission, bigger motor. So we're actually working the truck twice as hard during these snowstorms or what we're supposed to be doing with them. So I personally wouldn't recommend doing that. I can go get a price to see what it is for one of those economy trucks like we did with the white one when we first bought it. But I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Because you don't think it'll hold up?
I don't think it will hold up. And we keep these trucks a little longer. If we actually had a program that we could say, hey, we can get rid of these trucks in 8 or 10 years, and maybe it'd be something, set in stone. Okay, we can do that. But it seems, all these trucks are falling into one right after another, like we've discussed before. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, putting a smaller motor, a smaller transmission for what we do, especially with all the hills and everything here in town.
Okay, and then the other question is, obviously, or I'm sure, but you're gonna verify now, this is off of a state approved bid list.
Yes, correct. Yep. Everything is off of state approved vendors. Yep.
Okay, and did you put your spec out to bid, or did you just run your spec through the state approved vendor?
We ran this spec through the state approved vendor. Like they're a freight liners. So, and we could go to an international chassis is about $20,000 cheaper. But with internationals, we're trying to get away from them with all that emission stuff on them. Basically, we don't want them.
Okay, so now that there's a 30% cost overrun, does it make sense for us to go to bidding to try to get the cost back into what the taxpayers have approved?
I think there's only so many vendors you're going to find it from. I mean, international or, Freightliner where it is. I mean, you're not going to compete with like Mack or, these other bigger truck companies. So it's not really, I mean, you're still putting a stainless steel body, the plow, stuff like that. Basically an international is cheaper, would save you probably about 20 grand, but their body wise and all that stuff is still going to come, relevant.
Okay, and you just talked about emissions. Everyone has to meet the same emission standard, but you're saying the international is something less desirable about their emissions?
Yeah, absolutely. That Max Force motor they have is horrendous. That's what we're trying to get rid of, that one last truck. So it's been nothing but problems.
Okay. All right.
Christina?
Christina, yeah, sorry.
So are you saying there's only one vendor in the whole state that sells these trucks?
The Freightliners, yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And they're a local deal. They're right in Hartford. So if we have a problem, we have one of the trucks right down there now with a PTO issue. So it's local. It's not, I don't want to say local, it's local right up the road, basically. I mean, we can buy a Freightliner in Maine or something like that, but now what do we do when we have to have it serviced or something like that?
Mhm.
Yeah, the local Freightliner dealer will put it at the end of their list.
Correct.
I think you should ask your questions. Hopefully it's not stupid.
Oh, no, this is a stupid question. Have you looked into electric vehicles?
You want to hear something? I'll give you a little rundown. I had a gentleman stop the other day for a sweeper. So he stopped and I was like, well, we were looking for whatever, what can you do? So he says a lot of towns or municipalities are going towards electric. So we can get a brand new diesel sweeper for about $265. Okay. The electric sweeper start at $650,000. So if you want to go electric, I'd be more than.
We have enough power.
Troy, that's why we need to be in the same room. I was not being serious on that question.
But you asked, so he gave you an answer.
I
If you're
know,
gonna ask, be prepared to get an
I
answer.
noticed that.
Okay, thank you for that information, Troy.
I've looked at different options, trust me. And there are towns that are moving towards electric vehicles, but nobody knows how long they'll last or whatever it is. So I don't want to be stuck in the middle of a snowstorm for 30 hours and recharging it.
So I will tell you that the selectmen added a 10% contingency.
Because of expecting another price increase.
Potentially, yeah. We're hoping none of that comes to fruition, but there's just no way of telling the longer we put off purchases. Vehicles are probably the most difficult right now.
Yeah.
Do we need to do anything about this tonight? Is there a motion or?
Well, there is a potential motion to try to appropriate the other $66,000. But
Yeah, well, listen, you don't have to do anything tonight. We run the risk of increased costs for every minute we put this off. This still has to go to a town meeting. We are planning a town meeting with multiple other items. You know, I'd like
Including
to
the mapping
hold a
software.
town meeting, so we can put as much in at the same time as possible. But you certainly, as a board, have the right to take as much time as you want to make a decision, so.
Donna, how long does it take for you to put something like this out to bid?
Lease financing,
The truck, what the truck would cost. So if we were to put this out and say in Troy's example, we are hoping someone from Maine doesn't bid because it creates a service problem. But what if someone from Maine bids the truck $40,000 cheaper? Then I think we take a risk on a service problem.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Because
Okay.
then we're closer to the budget that the taxpayers approved.
Yes, okay. Putting a truck out to bid would go under the realm of Troy's responsibility. He
All
put
right, but
the
you'll
specs
help him,
together.
but you'll help him.
Yes, I'll help him.
How long a process do you think that's gonna be? I'm just trying to figure out if this is
Okay,
gonna
but
delay us a long.
once we put the specs together, we could do target the vendors, do it
Yeah.
like direct solicitation
Right,
to the people that we think sell these trucks,
right.
whatever.
They're
Troy-
big dealers like in New York, New
Yeah.
Jersey area and stuff like
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yes, and then we set a date that for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, all the bids come back. And then, that would be it, have a bid opening, in, I would say 2 weeks.
So we're talking in time for you and Troy to work together on this spec. We're talking about something, we're probably talking about a month or two to resolve this. To to see if there's a better price out there.
I would say potentially by the next board of finance meeting, we could have had open bids. By then, in a month, if we put it out for 2 weeks and a week to prepare. And then,
I hate to cause any more delay, but 30% cost over what's approved is big, and I'm just hoping there's an opportunity with
What are we
bidding.
talking about in raw numbers here, about $38,000?
We're talking about $66,000 more.
Oh, I did my math.
Because it was a $225,000 project, it's now a $295,000 project.
Got it.
So it's almost a $70,000 increase, so that's over 30%.
And I would add, I don't know, I guess I'd want a little more information from Donna about the reserve fund, but when we were doing the CIP plan, we were very careful about the reserve fund. So taking that money out of there to fund this might screw up a future plan. And we don't want to do that.
No, I actually ran the numbers through, taking out $66,000. And it's okay, it doesn't put any year into the negative. And the numbers work out
within the current 5 years.
within the
Okay.
current 5-year plan.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why I mentioned, again, we don't have that other ARPA funding, and there's no way for us to know that that would go through.
Right,
But it is another source of funding,
right.
that I think the board should consider if they want us to look in that direction.
Well, and maybe in between the time to do bidding and to have more discussion about the potential of ARPA, maybe these things can come together with a more complete set of options by soon.
I hope so.
Do we have to make a motion to tell you to bid it out? I mean, bidding is a
No.
standard process
No, I
anyway.
think it's your recommendation, and then we move forward with that. I think we hear you, and Troy and I hear you, and we move in that direction.
Is it the consensus? I mean, I'm the one talking. Is it the
Yeah,
consensus of the board members that we should bid it?
Yes, it's always.
Mhm.
If you're gonna take another month to make a decision, you give us the direction to go in, and we'll move in that direction.
That's,
We're not opposed to that.
I've polled the
There's No
members,
part of me that wanted to increase the cost of this truck.
especially that much.
Especially this much. And
Yeah.
again, it is inflated over what their dollar amount was to us. Because quite frankly, Troy and I aren't sure if we go back to them, say, we're ready, we got money.
They might hit you
That
with
it's
another
the
price
same- that
increase.
it's the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
price, right? So we haven't had that conversation
Yeah.
yet, and so the board felt that we should be putting contingency on, and then if it wasn't spent, we send that, that stays with the.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that, August 1st, the fire apparatus industry went up 7.9%. And there's rumor there may be another increase before December 31st.
Same thing here, we heard it on everything that we purchased so far, and so there's, gives us lots of pause. I'm afraid that, even waiting longer, that the bids are gonna come back much higher, but I'd rather know that now than later, because we're
Right.
still gonna need a vehicle.
Right.
And we know that there are other vehicles in the next year of this plan,
Mhm.
so.
Okay, well, I did poll, I mean, it was consensus of the members to put it out to a bid process, which is a normal procedure potentially for you to do anyway. It's not like we're asking you to do something that you don't.
So
normally.
So I'll
I
ask
think,
you just to consider this, item at your next meeting.
Yes, I will gladly, how about this? I move that we table. new
I
business.
tried to interrupt like 5 minutes ago to move that we table this till next month.
So,
Giving the
yes.
business,
Second that motion.
well, I'm not done with my motion yet.
Oh.
Giving the business, person time to figure this out, send this to bid, work with Troy and look at ARPA. Hopefully more money will come in this month. Now,
You
second,
can- You can make that, I second that. You can make that into something, right? Yeah, figure it out. Okay, we got the gist of it. So any discussion on the motion to table it? Can you call the vote, please?
Yeah, did Christina
Yeah.
call?
Looks like Christina fell out.
Jim's still there.
Yeah, all right, call the vote.
Jeff,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes,
Jim,
Yes,
Lisa,
yes,
Mike,
Yes. And just put Christina on Zoom did not respond. Seems to be the way of the night here. Okay.
Just come to the meeting.
All right, good and welfare. Again, I apologize to all of the participants who had to wait for us to get started. We learned a lesson about how we're gonna get the Zoom going and not get ourselves locked out of it. And again, for some reason, I left off the second present to speak. Since we've been doing it consistently for the last 2 years. I will entertain present to speak one more time. So in the room,
Nick Tell, 49 Myrtle. So notes that I wrote down, kind of frustrated, when we went to the vote for the excavator. I had mentioned about this truck and it was said, nobody take consideration, it's not on the agenda, it's not nowhere in the future, this and that. 75,000 for the excavator, in my opinion, should have been waited, looked at the end of the fiscal year. Has now been dedicated, and here we could have used that money for this situation. So kind of frustrated with that. Fire department, I think, just did a used ambulance. I don't know why we're not pushing that issue. I think that was smart for the fire department to do that. For as far as the school, Phil's already been talking about the budget. The school looks as though it's gonna be over budgeted because of materials and such like that. There was some conversation earlier about how expenses for the pipes went from 600 to 3,000 or something. The numbers that were presented in the 7 different options for the school, I think should be recalculated to today's prices because inflation has hit this country like crazy. Those numbers that were put out to the town are not the same numbers. I think there should be some consideration at looking at what those numbers really are in today's market. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
thank you. Anybody else present to speak?
People to define on Trasco. If Erica or Troy or the team finds the truck you're looking for at the price the town budgeted next Tuesday in Akron, Ohio, can they just act or do they need your approval? And if so, can you have an emergency meeting?
So I'm gonna make a comment if you don't mind, Mike, and then I'll
Please.
chime in. Yes, they can have an emergency meeting if it warrants an emergency, but we have to follow our procurement policy.
With town meeting and
Which,
everything?
no, well, which says we need 3 bids or a state approved vendor. So someone from out of state would not be a state approved vendor, so we would need then at least 3 bids. So if we were able to get 3 quotes from someone else, so we'd still have to have a process. All of the funding wasn't coming from a source that didn't negate the town meeting process. So we'd have to come back to them to go to town meeting. But if they felt it was warranted an emergency meeting, I would rather a special meeting than an emergency meeting if necessary. But Don, is that,
You
Oh,
still
that's
need
correct.
the Town meeting.
we still need the town meeting, and so we,
From the reserve,
Because it's not a straight lease. If it was just a lease, it could just be processed.
because it's reserve fund spending. partial reserve fund spending.
It was already, a portion of it was already reserve fund spending.
Okay, any other present to speak? Anyone online on the Zoom who wishes to speak in present to speak? Seeing none, I have no good and welfare.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor,
Aye.
please wave in favor and say goodbye.
Aye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, looks like that's it. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Mike.
You are welcome. Thank you all.